Vacations were supposed to be an escape from reality, a chance to unwind and leave behind the worries of everyday life. That's why I was so excited when my friends and I decided to rent a secluded cabin in the woods for a week-long getaway. Little did I know that our vacation would turn into a nightmare beyond our wildest imagination. The cabin, nestled deep in the forest, was everything we had hoped for. Rustic, charming, and surrounded by nature in all its glory. The trees stretched high into the sky, their leaves forming a dense canopy that blocked out the sun. The air was thick with the scent of pine and the sound of chirping birds. The first few days of our vacation were idyllic. We hiked through the woods, swam in the nearby lake, and spent evenings by the campfire, sharing stories and laughter. It was everything we had dreamed of, a perfect escape from the stress of our daily lives. But on the fourth day, things began to change. It started with a strange sensation, a feeling of being watched. I dismissed it as paranoia, the result of too many horror movies and campfire tales. But as the days went by, the feeling only grew stronger. One evening, as we sat around the campfire, we heard a rustling in the bushes nearby. We brushed it off as an animal, but then the rustling turned into footsteps, slow, deliberate, and unmistakably human. We all turned to look, our hearts pounding in our chests, but there was nothing there. The forest was dark, and the trees seemed to close in around us. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was lurking in the shadows. That night, as I lay in my bunk, I heard it, a faint whisper that seemed to come from the walls themselves. I strained to make out the words, my heart racing as the voice grew louder. Leave, before it's too late. I sat up, my breath coming in short, shallow gasps. The voice was coming from the cabin's walls, as if the very wood itself was speaking to me. I woke my friends, but they dismissed my fears as a result of exhaustion and the remote location. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The next day, we decided to go for a hike to take our minds off the eerie events of the previous night. As we ventured deeper into the woods, we stumbled upon an old, dilapidated cabin hidden among the trees. It was a decrepit, long-forgotten structure that looked as if it had been abandoned for years. Despite our better judgment, we couldn't resist the urge to explore. The cabin was a treasure trove of the past, old photographs, faded letters, and tattered diaries that spoke of a family that had once called this place home. But as I flipped through the pages of one particularly old diary, I discovered something that sent a chill down my spine. The diary belonged to a woman named Eleanor, who had lived in the cabin with her husband and 2 children. Her entries grew increasingly erratic, filled with ramblings about strange occurrences in the woods and a growing sense of dread. She wrote of whispers in the night, of voices that seemed to come from the very walls of the cabin. And then, in her final entry, Eleanor wrote of a terrible choice she had made, to leave her family behind and flee into the woods to escape the horrors that had consumed them. She begged for forgiveness, her words filled with regret and despair. I showed the diary to my friends, and we couldn't help but draw a connection between Eleanor's story and our own experiences. The feeling of being watched, the whispered warnings, the eerie voices, it was all too familiar. That night, as we returned to our cabin, the atmosphere had changed. The air was heavy with tension, and the sense of foreboding was palpable. We locked the doors and windows, but it was as if the darkness outside was seeping in through the cracks. The whispers grew louder, the voices more insistent. We could hear our own names, as if someone or something was calling to us from the shadows. Panic set in as we realized that we were not alone in the cabin, that the presence that had haunted us had followed us home. We huddled together, our hearts pounding, as the walls themselves seemed to come alive with whispers. The voices spoke of a terrible choice, a decision that we had to make to escape the horrors that had consumed us. And then, with a deafening roar, the cabin seemed to tremble. The walls shook and the windows shattered as a powerful force swept through the room. It was as if the very wood itself had turned against us, a malevolent entity that sought to consume our very souls. We had no choice but to flee, to escape the cabin and the darkness that had taken hold of it. As we ran through the woods, the whispers followed us, growing louder and more insistent with each step. And then, with a final, heart-wrenching decision, we made our choice. We returned to the cabin, determined to confront the entity that had haunted us. As we entered the darkened room, we could feel its presence closing in around us, the whispers reaching a fevered pitch. And then, with a blinding flash of light, the darkness was gone. The cabin was empty, the malevolent force banished, as if it had never existed. We were left standing in the dimly lit room, shaken but alive. As we left the cabin behind, I couldn't help but wonder about the entity's true nature and the darkness that had consumed it. Had we made the right choice? I would never know. But one thing was certain. Our vacation had turned into a nightmare beyond our wildest imagination, and the truth was more chilling than anything we could have ever imagined. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.